Members of the board and the superintendent may ask questions of any person who addresses the board. Questions should be addressed to the chair. No complaint or allegations will be allowed at board meetings concerning any person employed by the school system. The board discourages duplication or repetition of comments to the board. The board requests that groups or organizations be represented by designated spokesmen. So, who would like to speak? And if I could ask you to come to the microphone up here at the table so that people at home can hear you. If you could come up to the table and, yep, that would be great.
Can you sit down?
Sure. If you could just identify yourself.
My name is Melissa Wing. Is that all? Do you want me to know where I work? Or?
Sure.
I work as a bus driver
Okay.
for RSU 16.
Okay, thanks.
So, hello, my name is Melissa, and I'm here to represent the employees of the RSU 16 Transportation Department. Thursday, May 4th, 2017, we were notified by the superintendent that the proposed work agreement for the transportation employees would include an additional employee contribution to our health insurance, a loss of 1 week of vacation, and a wage increase of 1.5%. We were also advised that the superintendent was permitted to negotiate within a financial cap that was set by the school board. We would like to respectfully request that the board reconsider the proposed offer and give the superintendent the authority to consider the proposal that we have prepared. Superintendent compensation proposal, as offered to the transportation staff, would be a significant step backwards. We feel that this is unfair and unjust. Although the transportation staff is often referred to as unskilled labor, the requirements for this job are often overlooked. The responsibility factor of the transportation staff is unmatched by any other school member. We often drive under the most adverse conditions and represent the face of the district when confronted by angry members of the public. I would like to invite any of the board members to ride along with us or review videos to see the day-to-day challenges that face the transportation staff. The necessary requirements allowing us to do this job are mandated by the state and federal law that speak to the fact that we are more than unskilled labor. At the close of our meeting, we were advised that if our transportation department costs could not be kept in check, that contracting out the transportation services may have to be considered. Although the upfront costs may look inviting for the first 1 or 2 years, once control has been relinquished, the cost will increase while the quality of service suffers. The cost of a single lawsuit could easily far exceed the total amount of what we are requesting in our proposed offer. A neighboring school district which contracts their services is currently facing a driver shortage because the contractor offers no benefits to their employees. There have been times when drivers have been brought in from out of state to get their buses on the road. With the exception of a neighboring school district, the benefits package offered to the transportation staff here at RSU 16 is not any more generous than any other regional district. Reducing benefits and wages will lower the ability to attract good quality drivers and likely result in the loss of some long-standing drivers who have driven in our community for over 20 years. Over the past several contracts, there has been nothing close to what would be considered as negotiating. We have only been given a take it or leave it offer, and when we express displeasure with an unreasonable offer, we are immediately threatened with the possibility of contracting services. Although for the past many years we have not sought union representation, being one of the few districts remaining without a union, in light of recent circumstances, it is something we may have to consider, although we are not seeking to do so at this time. As you go into executive session, we once again ask you to reconsider a future look at the minor saving resulting from these cuts. Please do not penalize those who have loyally served the district for decades. If cuts are so necessary, please consider making those benefits changes through attrition. Thank you. The transportation workforce is admittedly aged, and the turnover process could deliver those savings. Please do not hit us in the paycheck all at once. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And also thank all of you for being here tonight. And there are a few things that I would like to say in response to that. We also have become aware of some things that are out on Facebook, which are really misinformation and things that I guess I would like to clear up with you. Our board has supported bus drivers, and we've shown that support in lots of ways. And the Facebook thing talks about private contracting of transportation as a bargaining chip. And we have not supported contracted bus service. We've been under some strong pressure from, particularly from some municipal groups, to take a look at that. And, you know, we have talked to some places that have used it. We've talked to some people at the state level. We have never thought that that's the best thing for us. We agree with you. We're certainly on the same page with you in terms of contracting. We think it's what we're doing currently is fiscally responsible, and we also think that it's best for our kids. We want our bus drivers to be employees of ours. We want you to be part of the team that works at educating our students. So, you know, that if the idea is out there that we are supporting or in some way pushing or using it as a bargaining chip, that is not true, or definitely is not our intent. That we're with you on that, and we certainly don't support going out and contracting our drivers. You know, the other thing that's been out there is the sense that we don't appreciate our drivers, which is also untrue. We do appreciate our drivers. You know, and we do realize that part of that appreciation we show you through salary and benefits, and we're hearing what you're saying. We'll look at that. You know, part of it with the bus drivers is it is a different process, and it's a different process because all of our other support groups are part of a support staff contract, and you're the only group that's part of a work agreement. So that makes it a little different. You know, and we could say it's a work agreement and we're not going to even discuss it with you, but that's not the way we do business, and that's why Tina has met with you, and that's why we're continuing to talk about this. So we appreciate that you're here and that you're sharing your concerns and that you've done it in such a polite and respectful way. So thank you for sharing that with us. And will be part of an executive session later in the agenda. Mark, do you have something you want to share?
Yes, if you would
Okay,
mind.
yeah, do you want to come up?
Thank you. My name is Mark Chase, and I've been a driver here in the district for 17 years. And regardless of what's been on Facebook, I don't know, because I don't really care about Facebook. However, I can assure you that the statement was made to us that contracting out services was certainly a possibility. I can promise you that. So whether you're thinking of it as a school board or you're not, it makes no difference. However, it was stated. I would like to maybe, I don't know if you want to look at numbers tonight. This was what was offered to us as drivers. I asked for a hard numbers breakdown on this. This was what was given to us. So I apologize for not bringing one for everybody here, but please, this is what was given to us. I wish you would take a look at it. I did bring numbers for you to look at. I will be glad to tell you what we're asking, if that's the proper place and time to do so, or if it is, we can submit it to Tina, whatever you prefer.
Well,
It would be very brief. I could go over it very quickly with you and right to the point.
Well, you know, I think all of those things have been shared with us. We're going to talk about it later in executive session.
I'm unaware of us sharing anything with you because we never had the option really to share anything. We was merely dictated to, and that was what we was offered, and simply that. So I am unaware of anything that was presented to you people. I could tell you what we're asking for. It's very brief, if you would not mind.
Yeah, it would be appropriate for you to give it to Tina and share it with her.
So you don't want to hear it, okay?
Well, she will share it with us.
All right. And I just wanted to make a comment, if you wouldn't mind. Some of the overlooked people here. I'd like to mention that the monitors have been probably the most overlooked on employees of our staff. and I'm going to have to read this a little bit because I wrote it up lately. The monitors, they are the most hands-on, interactive people and often the most abused members of our staff. It would be very well within the realm of fairness to increase these people beyond 3% that they are asking for, and a wage scale put in place that we can gradually get them up to a pay scale that would commensurate with other districts. So I think that's important. And finally, in closing, I would like to mention that when you're looking at nonprofit organizations, they're totally different than a privatized firm. We run on a student safety service-based school department, and they are solely for nonprofit. We have drivers here from this district that have left those departments and have stated right out that if they was to come here, that they would leave again. We are also interviewing people from those departments that are right in the neighboring towns that are wanting to leave those districts. So when we talk about privatization, that is something that would certainly be considered, I would think. But thank you very much. We will submit this to Tina in a timely fashion, and I guess it will be submitted to you guys.
Well,
I'm
if
not
you
sure how the
have
procedure
something
works.
with you and you want to submit it to her now, that would be
I don't,
fine.
because it doesn't look professional. I would like to have it look reasonable. I have one that looks reasonable, that would be very understandable. I could give you the hard numbers breakdown on it if you would like. If you do not, then I will submit all three of them to her, and she can submit them to you as
I
necessary.
think whatever you have that you can give to her tonight would be helpful.
No, I'll submit them to, within, today is Monday, we'll have them to you Wednesday morning.
Speak up. So, Mark, one of the reasons why we're saying if you have anything to give us tonight is I can actually talk to the board about it when we go
Well-
into executive session. So even if it's, I mean, if you wanted to take a few minutes, we're going to be here for a long time.
Well-
So if you wanted to write it over, or just, I mean, I don't have any problem having your one copy and giving it back to you.
We wouldn't, because it's scribble. It's fast math. You wouldn't be able to interpret it. Not, I'm not suggesting that you're not smart enough. It's my scribble, and I recognize it. What I could put in a nutshell is this, and I don't know, you stop me if you want me to. We are asking for 3% across the board. Bus drivers, van monitors, and school bus drivers.
If
We
you
are-
just want to jot that down and give it to Tina, that would be helpful, because we're going to talk about it tonight. I'm not trying to
That's-
push you into doing something you don't want to.
This is
It's-
brief. I got two other things.
Well, just, can you write them down and give them to Tina?
All right, we can
That
do
would be
that.
helpful.
This isn't, because the back pages aren't correct, Al. All right. I'll look at this. If they're correct, we will get them to you.
And we won't be doing it till the end of our meeting,
That's
so you've
understandable.
got plenty of
Yeah,
time.
that is understandable. I want to look at them and be sure that they're correct, and that you can all understand them in the fashion that we've written them. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
Thank you, appreciate that, Mark. Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
I'm Sherry Layton, and I just feel it's important that everybody knows what we're asking for and what we're getting. It's not over a year. I've been driving now over 40 years. Many of us have. We started out with nothing. We built up to where we are. And I don't think it's fair at my age or any of our ages to be taken away. We've worked hard. We love our jobs, we love our kids, and I just feel, what's it going to be next? If we take away now, and we take away later, and you're not going to get the drivers. Right now, people want to come to Poland. Poland has strived, they want the best. Look what we've got, and look at the time that they've dedicated just to the kids. And I think anybody that lives in the town, we've transported their kids, you would know, you'd see it. So I just want you to take a big look at that, the quality that you have in our drivers. So, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, and I guess I would just say that I think you're preaching to the choir. I can say that every morning when I put my grandkids on the bus, and the bus driver says hello to each one of them by name, and does the same thing when they get off at night, I appreciate that every single day, and I also know that that's just not for my grandkids. that you do that for every kid. And we do appreciate that, and we want you to know that. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Okay, we are going to move on to recognitions and acknowledgements. I'd like to say congratulations to the Optimist Club Student of the Month, Nolan Greenwald from Poland Community School, and Emma Bunye from Bruce M. Whittier, who shared their winning speeches about what the world gains from optimism. Emma spoke about the hope and optimism and confidence about the future, while Nolan spoke about faith and hope and confidence and peace that comes from optimism. And Nolan was also a speaker at our recent Friends of RSU 16 and wowed them the same way he did others. I also want to say congratulations to our National History Day winners. The first and second place qualify the students for the National History Day competition in Washington, D.C. in June. That's June 11th through the 15th. And third place qualifies the students as alternates. And these are the winners in that group. For group performance, it was Ben LaSalle and Braden Gurney who had first place. Group website, Aaron Gearden and Owen Landry, who had third place. Group documentary, Dakota Balker and Parker Sherburne, who had second place. Individual performance was Sophie Patno, who had second place. Individual website, Danielle Stroud, who had third place. An individual documentary, Sarah Martin, first place, Erica Olson, second place. So congratulations to them, and they are doing some fundraising for that trip if anybody'd like to contribute to that. I also want to recognize our elementary art teachers, Kelly Witten and John Graffius, for an outstanding elementary art show on May 4th at Elm Street School. Also want to say thank you to the Perloff Foundation, who just gave 2 3D printers to Bruce M. Whittier. And also want to say thank you and welcome to Isaac Ouellette, who's going to be doing our camera from now on. So welcome, Isaac. And now we can move on to our agenda adjustments. There's no real adjustment, although Lauren put an updated agenda out for us. And we have a presentation on State of the Schools from Sean Vincent.
Thank you. Too high.
Is this an appropriate place
Yes,
to be?
please. Right near the microphone. Yeah. I've got the numbers.
My name is Sean Vincent. I'm the principal at Whittier Middle School here in Poland. This is my 5th year as principal at the middle school. I started back in 2004 as a teacher, and then I became a dean, and then I became assistant principal between PCS and Whittier. And I'm in my 5th year at Whittier Middle School. It goes by very, very quickly. But it's been exciting to see the growth in the middle school over these years. Today I want to talk to you about a few different pieces. Number one, I want to brag about our school. But on top of that, I want to talk to you a little bit about what our school is demographically. I'll share just a snapshot based on test scores. I think that does kind of help fill the picture. And then I want to try to weave a thread through some of the work that we're doing at the middle school currently. This is our school. We're fairly small this year, 116 7th graders, 116 8th graders, and our class size is 16.7. And that doesn't include kids that are the smaller classes. This is an average class size of a regular ed classroom currently. You can see that our numbers are very similar to the other schools that are in the district as far as students with IEPs and students that receive free or reduced lunch in our building. We are expecting a bump next year. Our 7th grade class next year is closer to 130. But I think our totals is supposed to bump up to about 200. No, it's about 150 7th graders that are coming in, 150. So that's going to be a significant jump, and we're going to see some very large class sizes. But if you look at the the numbers over time, it's one class of 150, and then we go back down to about 125 kids per class after that. Looking forward to it. I mean that. It'd be great. Our teaching staff, we share a lot of staff members with other schools in the district, but for the most part, we have 16 full-time regular education teachers. I want to highlight that I really appreciate the board being behind hiring a dean. It's now been 3 years ago. I feel like she's made a world of difference at Whittier Middle School. That position has made a world of difference at Whittier Middle School in supporting students when they need it. And for middle school students, they need it yesterday. So it's great to have her there. And she's not like disciplinarian. It's not the old school assistant principal that I think we remember growing up. This is a person who's very proactive in supporting kids, not only for their behavior but also academically. And it's been really exciting. I think her leadership has helped just tremendously in watching a school grow. Just to talk a little bit about test scores. For the most part, we are usually slightly above state average. This is some history for you. As Ryan shared last month, it's hard to compare year to year because we've had 3 different tests in the last 3 years. So back 13, 14, and then we switched to the Smarter Balance test in 2015, and then and this is kind of a writing summary, although we didn't do a writing test individually last year. This past year, when we did the MEA test, the test that we just administered again this year, we were ahead of the state. And this is in percentage of students who meet or exceed the standard in that testing. The other thing that I do want to note is the middle school is a little bit different than the elementary schools in that, I'll go to math. You look at math, when they're comparing numbers, they're really just talking about 8th graders. And so, we have a different group of characters every single year that you're looking at numbers. So it's hard to compare, to really get a grasp on what kind of impact the instruction is having on those students during the course of their time there. But we can look at one group each year. Math, we stay ahead of the state, some years more significantly than others. This past year, we're again ahead of the state for meeting and exceeding the standard. Science, same thing. We had a nice year in terms of science. So the thread I chose to weave tonight is to kind of look at how we're addressing the strategic plan at Whittier Middle School. And then to also talk a little bit about our goals. And these are kind of ongoing goals, even though we have them marked as 2016-17. We certainly want to support all learners, being transparent in the practice of teaching and learning. And this is really around communication. We want to make sure that students, teachers, and parents are all on the same page, which can be tricky. And then third, we want to recognize and identify and develop our personal leadership styles. And this goes for staff, because it's crucial that we have teachers leading in our building, but it's also for students. We think middle school is a critical time to help students develop leadership skills so that they can really take off as they get to high school. So the first part of the strategic plan is around creating equitable opportunities for students to succeed. So I want to talk about that in terms of attendance, academics, and behavior. Our attendance data is pretty solid. Year to year, you look at it, we're over 95%, each year of the last 5 or 6 years. But when you start to dig into it a little bit, that's what we've been really working on this past year. So we currently have 7 students who would be classified as truant, which is 3% of our population. What that means for a student to be truant is 10 or more unexcused absences over the course of the year, which is, it's no good. We don't want that. But what we're seeing is truancy isn't the real problem. The bigger problem is what we call chronically absent students. Student becomes truant because the parent doesn't get on the phone and say, my child is sick. So it becomes an unexcused absence. Thing is, we have some kids that have missed a lot more time, and some very legitimately. You know, they're not well, you know, they have things that are going on for them. But in some cases, you know, parents are calling in, and there may not be the opportunity to really, you know, challenge that. But we have 16 students, just to kind of finish the thought, I guess. 7 students that are currently truant. We have another 16 that we're tracking closely because they have somewhere between 5 and 9 unexcused absences. Whenever we have a child reach 5 unexcused absences, that triggers a letter from us at Whittier Middle School to send home and say, hey, just want you to be aware, this is, you know, where your student is at right now. This is how our procedure works, because it is really important. We want the kids in school, but we also want parents to understand how the system works. But as I was saying, the issue is we have 31 students who are chronically absent, and that means that they've missed over 10% of the days that we've had at Whittier this year. You know, you think about that, well, 90%, that's pretty good, right? That's still an A. But when you think about if you get to 80% absence, you know, that's like missing 1 day of every school week, which is you know, it's bad news. We need the kids there. Even 90%, it's 1 day every 2 weeks, and it's hard to get the instruction and to have the positive momentum, academic momentum, if they're not in school. Just to go back to that for a second, so we have several systems that we're working on, and we have reports that we review every week. And what we're doing is we're using teachers, we're using some positive incentive programs. We just finished our Drive for 95. We have a lot of different things that we're trying in school to communicate to students how important coming to school is, and then also to make sure that parents are getting the same message. Yeah.
So just to define unexcused absence,
Yeah.
though, I know when this was a few years ago, but unexcused absent was if they were late. So if they arrived a half hour early, they were considered unexcused absent. So even though they were there the whole day. So I just wanted to clarify, you know, they were late, like a half hour, but they didn't miss the whole day.
Well,
so I'm just trying to clarify what that
that's not included for
meant.
us. You know, an unexcused absence is a student who was...
They missed the whole day?
Yeah, they missed the day.
That was like high school, but
Yeah.
I didn't know. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
The 95%, does that include excused absence kids?
95%, yes. The chronically absent, I'm talking about excused absences as well.
Yeah, so when you say you have a 95% here, if they're in an excused absence?
Excused, unexcused, 95% of our students are here on every given day.
Right, today,
Yeah,
okay.
on average.
Okay.
Yeah. So now another piece of the of making sure that our kids are getting what they need is our academic response system, making sure that students have opportunities to kind of fill some of those gaps. You know, there's a number of ways that we look at kids academically. Standardized test scores from the state is really only provides just a tiny bit of information. We also use a lot of formative and summative assessments within the classrooms to learn about where students are and where they need to be. And some of the ways that we fill those gaps, we have some time during the day where we have some students who go to band and chorus, so we take advantage of that time to build in some additional learning in areas of math, reading, and writing, also into research, to make sure that the kids get the support that they need during that time. So it's not lost time. After School Excel group is an opportunity for kids to work in a small group in a supported classroom with a staff member to make sure that they're getting work done and that they have somebody there available who can support them in that. Saturday intervention has kind of started to disappear for us. We've only had one this year. We didn't find that it was well attended, but it's one of those things that may or may not come back in the future. And then we also provide a summer program as well. But these are things that are outside of what's going on in the classroom. In the classroom, you know, teachers do small groups, teachers regroup, they work with kids to come in during their lunches, they come in after school, just looking for every opportunity possible to make sure that students are meeting all the essential standards in their classes. I just want to show you this. I thought this was pretty cool. I learned about this the other day. So this is a tool that we have in our school. As I mentioned, the state testing doesn't always provide us with enough information that we can move off of it. This is something that we have a test in our school called the NWEA test, and what it allows us to do is that it allows us to kind of monitor and measure where students are at any given time. So we have our students do this in the fall and then again in the spring. If you take a look at this this graph, what it shows is, when the kids tested, these are 8th graders who tested in the fall, and it compared where they were last fall as 7th graders to where they are this fall as 8th graders. This group of students in this quadrant up here had a high achievement level, but they also showed a high level of growth between the 2 dates that they were tested. This group over here had a low achievement score on the first test, but they also showed a high level of growth. So something's working for that group of kids right there. This group over here, high achievement, but their growth wasn't where the tool would have suggested they be on the second test. And this group over here had low achievement and low growth. So what this does is it helps us to identify, okay, whatever we're doing instructionally, we need to do something different for this group of kids that are down here in the bottom, on the bottom half of this graph. So it's just a layer, but it helps us to kind of redefine what groups of students we need to really focus in on at a given time. Another thing I wanted to mention is our positive behavior interventions and support, and I won't spend a lot of time talking about this because Ryan also talked about this last month. I will say that this is something that we have through a grant, and one of the things that I thought was really positive about it was we did this survey to get started in our relationship with PBIS, and the highest score you can get on, and all the kids answered the questions. They responded to a survey without an adult looking over their shoulder. And for the kids to respond and to have a culture survey done with them and to get an overall score of a 3.19 from middle school kids, I thought was extremely, extremely positive from our students. And I especially like question 9 there, where when kids responded to that, I know an adult at school that I can speak with if I need help, to a 3.51. Our coach, who's outside our school, said your numbers are exceptionally high, especially for a middle school. I also appreciated this down here, though. You're going to ask a middle school kid, do you like school? Yeah, good luck. Yeah. Here's just part of the tool, the PBIS tool. We put all of our behavior data into this module, and then we can look at it in any number of ways. We can look at it by location, where are our problem areas in the building, what are the behaviors that we're seeing most often, what time of day do those behaviors happen. Any guess what day of the week?
Friday.
No, Monday.
Monday.
No, there's so much rollover from the weekend and what happened online that it's Monday. That's the day.
I want to get out and go home.
Yeah, well, no, they're happy enough. They'll roll with that. You probably guessed the number one behavior that we deal with in middle school is defiance. So, that's also part of the age. Something like this, it can be really handy to take a look and to kind of think about. This was positive. This is our real data from this year, and you can see that October and then we've kind of been on a pretty positive trajectory, with the exception of March. But hey, March is a long month, right? This is just another example of a report that we can get from this. It shows what number of students have a certain number of office discipline referrals. So everybody in green, that's the percentage of students who've had 0 or 1 office discipline referral this year. So it's about 85%. And then the number of students who've had 2 to 5 are looks like about 10%. And then students who've had 6 or more, it's like 5%. So it's a good way to track and see how things are going and how the breakdown. And there's just so many different ways to look at the data. And we're excited because we'll have a full year data at the end of this year, and then we can look at, 1 year compared to the next, and also put this in front of staff, because I think we can do a lot of problem solving together. Second part of the strategic plan is around ensuring all students experience high-quality staff and instruction. And I think this really comes down to making sure that staff has time to collaborate, because we have some really smart people doing really smart things, and we just need time to share. Wednesdays provide us with some great opportunity for that, and we group and regroup into several different types of team alignments to make sure that we're maximizing those opportunities. This year has been a real focus on curriculum and making sure that we're on the same page, that we have assessments that are common, and that kids are having common experiences in our building regardless of what team they're on. And our focus book study this year has been on assessment, collaborating, making sure we're doing the same things for our kids. Another thing that I just wanted to say about staff: every member of our staff is on a committee at Whittier Middle School. We really believe that leadership needs to be shared. So we all have important roles in making sure that the work gets done. And we break our staff into these are the 5 committees we have this year. Literacy was a new one that we added this year. We just saw that as being a real need to grow in the areas of reading and writing. And we've made some nice progress there this year. And then the last part of the strategic plan that I wanted to just mention today was the Part C, which is building community collaboration and communication. I send out a weekly newsletter email every week to our parents. What we've found is if you try to send a newsletter home with a middle school student, it does not get there. You're absolutely right. So we send an email every single weekend to let parents know what's going on in our building, because we really want them to be part of what's happening. We also we have a Facebook site for our school, which seems to be pretty effective. And then we have a number of events that have become really positive traditions in our school, and each of those brings out, over 200 people, with each event, whether it be neighbors and family and friends, and it's just, they become really exciting parts of what we do on an annual basis at Whittier. We have lots of reasons to celebrate this year at Whittier Middle School. It's been a really outstanding year. We certainly have areas that we want to work on, and I've kind of highlighted those for you here. We want to continue to make sure that we keep bringing kids to school, that there's nothing in the way of them attending school, that we're taking care of them academically, and then certainly that everybody is growing, whether it be our staff or our students. So that's my presentation.
Questions for Sean? I would just say, I appreciate your links to the strategic plan. And I also want to thank you for your patience, because I know that your presentation has been delayed several times. So thank you for that. And I also want to say I continue to appreciate the effort that you and your staff put into the transition for our 6th graders. And I see that as something that is also an intervention. It's being proactive and preventative, I think.
It makes our job easier next year.
Yeah.
So we can get those.
It still is a considerable amount of effort and planning, and I noticed you were out doing those visits, so
Yeah.
thanks for
Oh, that's
doing
exciting. I feel like a rock star going into
that. Well, you are a rock
Not so
star.
much when you walk in the middle school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to act on the minutes to approve the regular meeting minutes for 4/10/17. So moved. We have a second? Second from Lisa. Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Unanimous. The acceptance of the financial statement to approve the April 2017 financial statement. Move to accept. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second, so I'm sure that Stacy has.
Melanie.
Melanie, you want to move the microphone down so you can hear Stacy at home?
This is warrant 22, so we are at 15.83% remaining. Reminder that the salaries are encumbered, the benefits are not, so it just tweaks the percentage at the very end to look differently. Just a word on the support staff encumbrances. I think we've talked about this before. The system encumbers support staff on an average, and so it's not always accurate. As a matter of fact, just on the first page under superintendent's office, the actual encumbrance on the second line should be 9,100, not 13,000. So that does throw off what the balances are. A few things to point out on page 15. Under the technology, the lease purchase line shows about 50,000 remaining. Linda did her final PO today. We got the final bill from the state for the laptop. We pay that quarterly. And so the fourth quarter payment is coming out, so that won't be left on that line. Just underneath on the improvement of instructions, as you know, stipends are paid in December and June, so there will be money coming out of that section. Page 25. About in the middle of the page, there's the contracted services line for $95,000. That's the seed money that Tina talks about several times during the year. The way that is taken out, the state takes a little bit out each month of our subsidy. So there's a report that's generated to see how much our match is for the seed, and they do that quarterly. The last update we received was March 24th, and it showed the seed we would owe is $115,800. As you can see, $31,000 has been accounted for so far, so we have $84,600 more to account for, and those will be taken out of the April, May, and June payments. At the time this was printed, we didn't have the April subsidy check yet, so I did get that in May and saw where some of that had been taken out. So that will be adjusted in the next, probably the next financial that you have.
Stacy, on that page, do you have a sense of where we're going to end up in terms of the tuition paid to educational services? We only have 42,000 left in that.
I do not, but I bet Holly does, if she's here and would like to help us with that.
I have not projected out. We'll clearly be going over that additional 42,000. Yeah, so when Stacy said there's should be 15% left, there's only 9.5% left. So if you figure there's, and they're usually behind a little bit in their billing. So I think
Right, because they bill us after, at the end of the month for the attendance.
Likely to be over.
Yes, and probably twice, it's going to be considerable.
We did do an out-of-district placement reimbursement request from the state for high out-of-district costs, and we should be seeing that come back in June. It's usually the last subsidy check of the year. The state sends
that
that
money
money
back
back
additional
out.
subsidy because of those costs?
Yes.
And we don't know how much that is till they.
I don't know.
Tracy did Tracy did the report and I certified it, but it was probably 3 weeks ago, and I've done a lot of numbers since then, so I cannot pull that one out of my head, I'm sorry. And Gary and Tony have been looking at the repairs they need to do that they've been putting off, waiting just to make sure, things were in line. And so we had quite a few repair POs come in the last 2 days, last Friday and today. So we'll be seeing some expenditures come out of the operations, but they look very healthy right now, the bottom lines. I don't have anything on adult ed. It's the same thing we say every month. She operates on a shoestring. She does a great job. We do not foresee her running in the red. And food service, I'm sorry, I'm just flipping through so I was at adult ed, now I'm on the very back to the food service section. They start again at page 1 of 4 and 1 of 2, so 2 of 2. So on the revenue side, 2 of 2 of food service. Right now, we've made $9,400 this year in food service, which is a lot better than being in the red. And so the fund balance we started with was $155,000 in the red from the audit. So we're at $146 right now. So we're moving in the right direction, slowly. And that's all I have, unless someone has any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Stacy? Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. And we're going to move on to approve out-of-state trip for the National Speech and Debate Tournament in Louisville, Kentucky, and there is some paperwork explaining that in your packet. Also, Carrie's here if you've got questions.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second. Second from Lisa. Any discussion, questions?
They feel they'll be successful raising the money that they have to.
Yep, she's right
There
there.
she is. Okay.
There wasn't room over there, so you
Okay, Norm asked if you thought you would be successful in raising the funds that you're going to be needing for that.
So it looks like this one is students pay the $200 fee for the speech and debate.
Yeah, no, we pay the fee, but the kids
Right.
do the fundraising. No, Mrs. Robinson, she's raised money every year, they figure it out, they go, I mean, she always has kids who make nationals, and they always make it work.
I know that she's done a great job.
The talent show is a big fundraiser for that, so.
I know she's done a great job for many years. I'm always curious how to do it all.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval? Anybody opposed? That's unanimous. And then there was a trip added to approve the out-of-state trip for the senior class trip to Agawam, Massachusetts, and that's attached to the revised agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Second by Jack. Questions, discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. To approve the purchase of 2 school buses.
Move to approve.
Was that a new one? Because I didn't see that on this one. Which one? There's 2 buses that was on the new one, but it isn't supposed to be there, is it?
Oh, I don't know, I assumed, yeah, I don't see it on the, oh, yeah, it's on, up
Oh,
here
okay,
on
it
the
is on the-
revised.
all right.
Yeah, it's on the revised.
Okay, it's on the revised one.
This says
Oh, and it's
3
on the
buses,
back,
though.
that's why I didn't see it.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's
it's
there?
Those were bus bids.
Yes.
Oh, I was thinking the same thing, Gina.
Huh?
I was thinking the same thing. I was
I
like,
know.
is this for 3 buses?
No,
But
yeah.
it's 3 bids.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Got
there's
it.
3 school buses that they're bidding for replacing 3 school buses.
Oh, they are replacing 3?
But it's
So
to
it says
approve,
2.
It says 2.
it says to approve the
Purchase order.
purchase of 2 buses.
Oh, John?
John,
2?
do you-
Okay, so that's a typo on the
So what do we do?
second page. 2 buses.
2 buses?
3 bids.
We have 2
buses.
buses, 3 bids.
3 companies bid.
Okay.
So the agenda's correct, there's a typo on Tom's bid results.
And we're
Okay.
still- these are still being given back to us.
John, do you want to come and talk us through this?
Straighten this out.
It's over the years,
Yeah.
but we still, we're subsidized.
Yeah, we're in a-
Exactly.
Yeah.
How you got bite?
It's all right, I'll sit over here.
Help set us straight, John.
What was the question?
Okay, so, so it is 2 buses.
It is.
We have 3 bids.
There were 3
and-
different companies that bid.
Okay. And it says, after reviewing the bid submissions to meet specifications, it's my recommendation to accept DATCO? Is that what you pronounce it?
That's correct. All the bid specs were, went through with the mechanics and Tom, and that is their recommendations. Even though the pricing is a little bit higher, there's different components about the bus that make it of more value.
And Tom has bullets here, what the issues were with the lower bids.
So that the DATCO offers a 7-year warranty on transmission, and new transmissions save 3 to 5% fuel savings over the course of a year.
And the big thing, I think, with the lowest bid, Cressy was missing specs. Rear suspension was inadequate, so.
What breed bus are they?
They're internationals. Pretty much what we've been buying for the last,
Okay, now another question. Why are we buying them so late in this fiscal year?
Well, this is the same time of year that we always buy them. They'll be ordered now. We won't actually receive them until the beginning of the
I
school year.
understand that. So are we buying them off this year's budget, next year's budget?
No, these are financed out of next year's budget.
Next year's?
Yeah.
These are the ones we've been approved for that will come in after July 1st. They'll come in usually sometime in September or October.
Okay, so we're really,
And we don't actually get notification from the state as to how many buses we've been approved for.
right, I understand that, John. But really, they're next year's state budget and our budget too, really.
Correct.
Okay.
The state reimburses, you get down a little bit.
That would be a better question for Stacy.
Yeah,
Stacy?
they're fully
Multiple
funded,
years.
Yeah.
yes, they're fully funded by the state. We have 3 coming off, so we're getting the 2 buses and a van. And so as some come off lease, it covers the first year. And then, yes, they're fully funded in the subsequent second, third, fourth.
And actually, the way we have them financed, it never really costs us anything because of the rotation schedule that we have on our buses.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand that, but we got people at home watching, so.
Sure.
just so that
Okay.
they don't.
Have we had any bids on the old buses?
They're currently out for bid now. The closing date hasn't.
Okay, have we, do you know if we received any or not?
I don't believe we have.
Okay, on radio stations, watching the Star Car races, they have places you can call and donate, like, cars for kids, that's what you'd look on the computer for. I mean, that would get them on a lot of dooryards and stuff.
Well, I'm not authorized to give them away. That would have to come from you guys.
Yeah, but, I mean, have anybody thought about that? It's a non-profit to raise money for kids. I think if we could approach them and get rid of them, I think we'd approve to get rid of them. It's just an idea.
Well, it's something probably we'd want to bring up at our
After we go through the
operations committee at some point.
Yeah.
John,
Yeah,
these,
I'm not-
where do you put them up for bid? Because I haven't seen them on the website.
I
or
believe they're out on
anything.
Craigslist at this point, and Tom creates flyers and sends them to the towns.
They're in the post office typically. We used to
Yeah, I'm
have
not
that
sure
in the
where he
past.
has them, but they're out and about.
Okay.
I'd have sent them docks of planes, they might one day haul stock.
Well, actually,
put on
last
the
year, the
website.
buses that we sold were for people that were going to use them for, racing purposes. Yeah.
We're not gonna get rich getting rid of them.
No,
No, I
but
think-
they'll be off our property.
Yeah, I think we only made about $1,200 or $1,500 per bus.
Because if they do set there, after the DEP regulations, you gotta drain all the fluids. And so an engine's sitting there with no oil in it, nothing in the radiator,
That's not good.
it's not good anyway, so.
So do we have recommendation?
I'll make a motion, we accept the bid from DATCO to replace the 2 school buses.
Second.
And a second from Norm. Any more discussion or questions? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? No, that was unanimous. Thank you, John.
And John, Aaron has asked if it's possible to put this on the website. So maybe
sure.
you can check with John, Tom about doing
Just to
that.
get extra exposure, maybe
Yeah,
somebody
absolutely.
doesn't
Right, 'cause-
check Craigslist often or something.
Okay, Amy,
So I
to
think
tweet
that
them out
was
for me.
an issue in the
No,
past.
she doesn't.
Somebody
They're already
felt
on
like
there.
they were.
It would make a great tiny home.
So the next one is to approve teachers for the first, second, and third year probationary contract, and you have the list in your packet.
Move to approve.
You have a second?
Second.
Second from Jack. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, and the next one is to approve the uniform grant guidance under federal funds, and they're listed under policies, but we can look at those now. It's to approve a first and final reading, and these are policy updates that are required so that we can utilize federal funds. It was discussed at our Personnel and Finance Committee, and in the packet you can see the changes. The highlighted areas were things that were added, which I think are standard language that's been reviewed by a lawyer, correct?
Correct.
Stacy, you want to explain this
Yes,
to
I'd be
us?
happy to. So this came down from the U.S. Department of Education so that there'd be a uniform set of guidelines for federal funds. It looks at general procurement standards, methods of procurement to be followed. It encourages contracting with small and minority businesses. It encourages competition. It also shows how to avoid conflict of interest by employees, officers, or agents when they are dealing with contractors that may be bidding on something. And there's also disciplinary action for violations of the conflicts of interest. There were 35 districts in Maine that worked together on this with Drummond Woodsum because the two policies that you are voting on have an 18-page procedure manual that Tina and I have to have ready by July 1st as well. So it was quite a process, a lot of legal language, but when we looked at our policies, they were in really good shape. You can see just the few changes that we needed to make. And the cost was minimal to us because, again, we shared the cost with 35 districts. We all worked together on this.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
Second?
Now, are you making a motion to, there are two separate policies?
Both of them.
And you're making a motion for first and final?
First and final.
For first and final reading of both policies. Do we have a second? Second from Tina. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That was unanimous, and I will sign it and send it around. All right, then the next one is to approve our strategic plan, Section D, and if you remember, we have approved the other sections. We have D and E left to do. Is Amy going to talk some about those?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Good to see everyone. Ask John to come back down because we are talking about operations, so he is the man of the hour to help out in case there's any questions. So we have to shuffle through the papers to find everything that you'll need for this short bit. So in the packet where it was the trip to Kentucky, it is the part of the strategic plan, Section D, so you want to find that. Second page, the back side of that, says maintain and improve financial and operational systems. And then just so it's a quick be able to look at how things have changed, because remember our strategic plans really wants to keep up with the current reality of our districts. Last time when I talked to you about the other standards, I gave you a little quick look. So this was underneath your revised agenda where it says strategic plan quick look. So that way if we hold those side by side, you'll be able to know of all of our changes that John and the operations committee, as well as John, Tina, and I met to make sure that we're moving our district forward. So I'll start right in with taking you through the changes, and feel free to stop us and ask questions. First one is D1A, and that has some significant changes to it. And again, with all of our strategic plan, we felt like our first strategic plan was really about implementing using kind of those low-level verbs of like starting things, and now we've got those things established, and we want to move forward. So it's about moving from establishing to implementing our formal annual review annual system-wide review process. We also added in some other pieces. Number one is identifying a 10-year capital improvement plan for each building. So we really wanted to put a time limit on that. So it's 10 years, and to make sure that we have some clear ideas of where we want buildings to be in our 10 years. Also exploring energy savings, and then how are we going to pay for our ideas is reviewing our federal, state, and local funding opportunities. So really making sure that we're looking everywhere to have some costs, as well as keeping our buildings up to date. And then D1B is a small change. We've gone from, previously that was just about the middle school and addressing the overcrowding. Now we're moving towards the security piece, because as you've heard with our middle school project also includes improving the security for both middle school and high school. So we wanted to make sure to highlight that change in that section for security upgrades for the middle school and high school, as well as addressing the overcrowding and the structure at Whittier Middle School. Any questions there? John's just waiting for one. All right, we can flip the page to D2, and that's maintain and improve our transportation systems. So D2A is a small change, so starting to think about cost-efficient options for future bus garage in our storage space. We have pieces now that we like, and we have some options that we want to explore for the future for our bus garage and storage space for all of the things that go along with working on a bus. D2B has some changes. We've combined it with D2D. Before it was two different categories. One was called work expectations, and then D2D used to be called defined transportations and facility roles. We've done those. Those are those low-level pieces again where we wanted to define and make sure everyone understood what their roles are. And so now we've changed that to D2B is professional expectations. We have those categories for our teachers and our administrators. So now we've condensed those two to be under one category. And then highlighting there that D2B does include the transportation director working and coordinating with school administration on bus PBIS, as Sean was saying in his presentation about the positive behavioral supports, also including our bus drivers are the first teachers. They greet our kids every morning and they're the last ones to see them before they get off the bus. So making sure that the buses have routines and procedures for recognizing positive behavior as well as how to deal with some not so good behavior that happens on buses. And then D2C is we added the word quarterly there because we wanted to get a little bit more of a look on our transportation needs and our program needs, because as kids move in and move out, we want to make sure that our busing and our transportation needs matches what the program needs are of the kids. And then just on the back there is D2D, and our recommendation is to delete that because that's been combined with D2B. Anything for D2? No one has bingo yet. Okay. D3 is maintain and improve food service. So D3A, no major changes. We continue to utilizing our process for getting our bills paid. As you heard Stacy say, $9,400 rather than being in the red is a positive direction. So we want to make sure that we keep continuing with our positive. D3B, there's some small changes in there. We really want to get the voice of the students involved. We learned that from Jordan and Sarah, who aren't with us tonight, but really bringing in the perspective of students and what they want to eat through surveys. And then also, if you go to any fast food restaurant now, all of their nutritional values are all posted on their signs. So we want to make sure that to enhance our menu's transparency by having links to nutritional value for our kids to make sure that they're aware of what they're putting into their bodies. D3C is no major changes to that one. Any questions on D3? All right. D4 is effectively manage our district finances. So in D4A, we have some changes. We're moved from identifying to increasing our volunteer involvement. And we're looking at sharing of services and the use of local and county organizations to help with complete projects. We use the alternative sentencing program, and that's a great program that's saved us $14,000 in labor and pain.
Are we going to be able to do that this summer, or because of the
We're
late?
going to squeeze them in.
Oh, okay. I thought because we got out late, we wouldn't be able to.
If we'd gone into the next week, we would have lost the opportunity.
Well, good.
And then D4B is, of course, just a small change is the use of technology and software to help improve our efficiencies would be the small change in there. And then D4C, we have moved D4C into its own objective later on. That's a technology one. And we put that down towards the bottom there in D6A. And then D4D is suggested is to delete. And D4E, there are some changes to that. That's our non-school town use of facilities. and we're really looking at, we have our fees set up and how non-school groups can sign out our buildings, but we really want to look at how do we oversee that from a district perspective, because all of our schools have different ways of signing out the buildings and paying fees, so we want to streamline that, and the use of software options to oversee the request, as well as making sure that those collections of fees do happen. And our staff schedules, making sure that if the building's being used for full day, do we have staff to cover that? And that staff would be the custodial staff to make sure that they're there to help with the cleanup pieces. Any questions for our D4? All right. No. D5 is maintain a safe and secure school environment. There's no major changes to that. We continue to make sure that we have our safety and assessment plan, that everyone understands that and knows that. Oh, there's an extra safety assessment and extra word there. And then D6A is maintain and improve our technology. So this is a new addition. It was up there in D4C. So we moved it out to its own piece because it is part of our financial and operations piece. We've had good decisions around the selection of devices and software, but now we want to make sure that it's supporting and it's helping out our students' learning and implementation of our curriculum. So two key pieces in speaking with Linda is making sure, she really wants to make sure we keep an inventory of all the subscription-based services, and that could be Jump Rope that teachers use for grading, or it could be IXL that math teachers use for extra practice in math, making sure that we have a list of that as to what schools are using what, and then our testing services too. So that could be NWEAs, it could be Moby Maps for elementary school, so just making sure that we do keep an eye on that. So kind of that, going back to that overseeing of like how we want to make sure we oversee the non-school use fee, make sure that's being collected. We also want to make sure that we're overseeing what subscriptions and software is out there. And then, of course, the technology director will present her recommendations for improvement in her annual budget. And that is our highlights for D.
Any questions for Amy or John?
What was D4D that you wanted to delete?
That was the service sharing, because we moved that up to D4A. And looking at, it's actually at D4A does start on page 11, but it's there at the page of 12, of looking at this possibility of sharing services or even key personnel with other district, with municipalities and other school systems.
So you just combine them?
Yep.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the strategic plan revision, section D.
Second from Norm. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion or questions? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, John.
You guys let John get off.
Yeah, I know. That's why he's moving fast. Catch him. Now we're going to move on to approve the 2017-2018 school budget. And also, this is a time if there is somebody there that would like to do public participation around this topic, allow that here. Come up and join us, and if you could just identify yourself. Welcome.
Thank you. Mary Beth Taylor, Poland. Looking over what we were handed at the last meeting, my understanding, and this is what I want to clear up, kind of clarify, is that if we receive state subsidy, what part of the budget is that? You know, that we know we're getting something. So which part of that would the state be saying their line of not giving us?
Yes. Yep. So the state has, they have a formula that they use that's called the Central Programs and Services, and they give money for many different things. So for teachers, for sports, for supplies, for, about every aspect of our educational system, some money comes in. And so if right now we've gotten a certain amount that we know we're getting in, that's represented in the budget. So the Stacey, do you have it in front of you, 8 million something?
From the state is 10 million. $314,000.
Okay, so we're getting 10 million from the state right now. If the legislature adds money back in, like if they add the business office and the superintendent's office money back in, which has been withheld right now, that would go into that 10 million. You'd see it as a lump sum. So they don't tell us where to spend it, they tell us how much we have to spend. But it does come through a formula how they determine what they're gonna send to us.
So it's not like a line item?
No.
It's just, this is your pot, and we're taking this much away?
Right, so they
and
might.
you decide what to do with it?
Exactly. They will say, we're gonna give you this much money for teachers. So, and they will say, we're gonna pay you for one teacher for every 15 students. But if you want to have one for every 12 students and pay more for the other teachers, you can. And if you want to say, we're going to have one through every 25 teachers, and want to use that money somewhere else, we could. So that's how that process works.
In terms of the subsidy that they withdrew, they were specific about some of that, didn't they? They withdrew
Yes.
the central office subsidy, which includes things like our audit and our central office salary. So this year, the money that they withdrew, they were specific in that area.
That it was
And that's what
central
we're
office?
And that's what we're hopeful that they will reinstate.
Superintendent, okay.
They actually,
so they were specific.
System administration. They also withheld money for teachers, so they increased the student ratio. There are 48 lines from the typical formula that's used that was changed. So
is that on the website? Could we
it's
see
very
where the state, what things they're saying they don't want to pay for? And what's the date when we'll know?
So whenever the
Is that a magical date out there?
So we're meeting tomorrow, correct? Are we meeting tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will show you the 279, which is our report from the state that we currently have, if you'd like to during that meeting. And also, we won't know until the legislature makes a decision. We've been told probably sometime June or July, but whether that happens then, we don't know. The legislature would have to overrule the governor's proposed budget with their own and vote that through. And we've heard very positive feedback that that's going to happen, but it's a waiting game.
That we are going to get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leaves me to, at the very end, you suggested that if we're not paying the 6.4%, that we take half of that, 40%, and give it back to the tax base. We do 30 for programs. So I'd kind of like to know what programs you're going to put back in, and then 20% for buildings?
We have 40, 30, and 40, 30, and 30.
Okay, so with that formula, what is the percentage that goes back to the taxpayer?
We don't know because we don't, 40%, but we don't know what the number was.
But you're saying you know how much they want to keep from us.
We don't know. We don't have any idea if they're going to put all 48 lines back in or if they're going to put 2 lines back in. The legislature will decide.
So what happens to that formula?
Same
thing. The formula remains the same. If you remember when we did the budget presentation and we did an overview of some of the things that we prioritized to say if we do get money back.
That's not the formula I'm talking about.
No, I understand what you're saying. But what I'm saying is you asked earlier about targeting what we would put the money back into. So we did make some decisions regarding that. So we do know where we would put some of the funding back in out of those divisions. But all we can say is whatever the legislature is going to give us out of that using those numbers, that's what would come back, the 40,
Right.
30, and 30.
But if we weren't concerned that they weren't going to give us money, you would come up with a budget saying you want more for programs, more for buildings, correct? But this way, I guess the bottom line is, if we got all the money, what would be the percentage increase? Because it's not the 184 and it's not the 6.4.
We don't know. We don't know. We have no idea.
We're going to vote on a budget?
You're gonna.
What you vote on is what we felt we had to develop a budget around is the worst case scenario.
Okay.
So what we're asking voters to budget on is that worst case scenario, that they don't reinstate any of that money.
And
then there is the one warrant article that says if they do reinstate it, this is how what we would do with the amount that's reinstated, that we would spend the 40% of it, we would just use.
So
for
how much
tax.
is 40%? Say they give us all of it.
You know, it's a good question.
We can talk
But,
tomorrow.
you know, the funding,
$100,000 be 40,000.
right,
But we don't know what it is.
right, but you're,
Out of those 48 hours,
So-
they could pass 5, they could pass 20, we have no idea what.
well, what I'm talking is about what you're wanting is that whatever it is, you're not giving it back to the taxpayer. You're wanting to keep some of it for whatever you
Right,
decide.
and-
Is that
and
correct?
I can tell you specifically
So-
what those programs are.
Right,
So-
but you're not, I don't feel like it's being real transparent.
So-
That, like, I hear you want to get programs back, so we need to list, is that the
Well,
hockey?
she'll tell you
is-
exactly what they are.
Okay.
So we created a budget knowing that we had the worst-case scenario. We didn't feel like our initial budget proposal was over 9% for our taxpayers. We knew we couldn't pass that. So there were some hard decisions we had to make. One of them was, we know we don't have enough money in CIP. We've got the bare essentials to get us through next year without a lot of, or any buffer money for emergencies. So we believe that it's important to put some of that where we know it belongs, if the right money comes in with the money that you expect to get. So that CIP is 30%. We also know that we need a guidance counselor, a full-time guidance counselor, and some support services at Elm Street School. That's a school that we feel is a struggling school. It has our lowest achievement, it has our highest poverty rate, it has our highest referrals for students with emotional needs. So we have put that as our #1 priority, and if money comes in, we need that position. That's what we want.
Right. And I
And-
totally agree with some of these programs you want to increase. What I would like to see is that you do a budget and say, we need the social worker at Elm Street. We want to put back what other programs you have. If we did that.
That's what we've done. We've actually already did that. So what
So
we
that's
said was.
in your budget, or?
No, because
Okay.
we don't believe it's fiscally responsible to ask our taxpayers to pay a 9% increase. So we're withholding that, knowing that right now, the governor has reduced funding to education. We are waiting until, we have a bare bones budget that we feel 6%, we'll get by with that if we have to, but the money for education is meant for education. So we've cut some of those things out that we know we need. We are waiting on the legislature. We can't pretend we know what we're going to get. If they just add central office back in, it's $395,000. So if we got that, 40% of that would go to reduce taxes, 30% for our educational programs, and 30% for the CIP. They might only reinstate half of that. They might reinstate that, plus the teacher ratio, plus the supplies. So there's no way to know what the legislature is saying is appropriate for education yet, because they haven't done the work. So, and we can talk some, I think it's
Yeah,
appropriate for
no.
the board to go on with.
Right,
the
I
meeting,
agree. I
but-
just want to clarify, you're asking the public to vote for 6%.
Yes, we are.
And that's what you're asking. And if we get more money, the taxpayer will not get it back, they'll get a percentage, which you can't give the numbers, correct?
Exactly.
Right.
That's
And-
exactly
Okay.
right.
And in fact, the easiest way to explain it, because there's a unique warrant article this year, which we have never had and never had the ability to have, that's been put in place because nobody knows what we're getting back. And it actually will allow us to not have to go back to the voters, which has had to have been done in every other case, if I'm correct, to expend additional money, because everybody is in the same boat as we are in all of the school districts.
Right.
So we do have that language in that warrant article that will allow us, should we get that back, to actually put some of it, again, back towards taxes, back towards CIP, and back towards,
And see, I would suggest that you give at least 50% back to the taxpayer. I think that you're funding because you haven't funded or put much to put that amount, take 30%. You know, you're asking also taxpayers to look at a building project, and so saying you want 6% this year is a lot, and say, we don't know, you might get a little back. So I would encourage that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Along those lines, I do want to let everyone know that once taxes are committed, if we get that number afterwards, that tax relief is not going to be realized in FY18, it will be realized in FY19. And I double-checked with Arlen and Minot, because they have a different fiscal year, and he did tell me they also commit their taxes in August.
Yeah, but doesn't the legislature usually adjourn legally the end of June?
Yes.
So we should know them numbers before.
I'm just letting you know.
Right, I understand what you're saying, Stacy, but they can do anything up in that rat hole.
So you'll update that as you get the numbers, you'll say whether it's going down and how much is for the building and how much is for program. Thank you.
Okay, so as we look at approving that budget, we did have an informational meeting that last week in April at Elm Street School. There was some discussion. There weren't a lot of people there. The only suggestions we had, we did have a suggestion from somebody that we look at CIP and add some additional monies there. There were questions around the line items. They wanted to look at the line items, and Tina walked them through that. There was a question about summer school, but pretty much that was the questions.
Sorry, just a quick comment. I mentioned about using the phone system to notify parents of these meetings. The next day, our son goes to LRTC. I received a phone call about their budget meeting. The next week, I received 2 reminders. So I think saying some people might be annoyed is not a good use of our communication.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So is there anything else that you wanted to say about the school budget? I know we talked about it at our last meeting.
No, I
There
feel
are no
like,
changes that have been made since last.
I just want to reiterate the fact that the money that we're talking about for this budget has nothing to do with the building project that we
Right.
have in plan. That's going to be discussed and later on down the road in November voted on, if we get to that point.
right, yeah, we
So,
can't.
I just want to make sure everybody understands, there's no fees put into this budget to pay for architectural, those have already been allocated. Nothing about the building project is in this budget.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Would you like to make a motion?
Did you want to talk about the summary sheet, Jack?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
Aaron and I both noticed on
There's
Second
Article
page.
7,
Yeah.
the percentage that's listed there.
So the formula is copying it down instead of across. If you notice the rest of them, it's figuring the percentage increase, which is the difference between the difference and the old amount, which should be 2.74% on Article 7. The 17.29 is just all those individual
That went down.
percentages added
Okay.
together. So when I was copying, I just copied down instead of
So
across.
what
on
should
that
it say
one.
there?
It should be
2 point.
2.74%.
Thank you.
Thank you for noticing.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2017-2018 school budget as proposed.
Do you have a second for that? A second from Melanie? Any more discussion or questions? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. And we also need to approve the warrant articles, correct?
So, the warrant articles, again, are pending the budget vote.
Correct.
So we have to have them in the towns the next day. So this just means they're pre-signed pending the budget vote. If the budget is actually reduced at that meeting, you would need to sign new ones. And we would either call a special session back, or Stacy would try to.
Well, these articles will be used at the district budget meeting.
These ones?
Yes, the summary sheet, which is your next agenda item, that's the item that may change at the district
Okay,
budget
thank
meeting.
you.
If someone votes a different amount in the articles.
Yeah, so this one
No,
is,
something that Mary has.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, those are the articles to vote on tonight, sign, post, and they'll be used at the district budget meeting on the 23rd. And then there should be a one-page sheet, Mary, that just you and Tina sign with the
I have
dollar
it.
figures.
yep,
And so if any warrant articles change at the meeting, that summary sheet, we'd have to change the numbers to reflect what the voters approved.
So, right now, what we need to vote on is the warrant articles that are supported by the budget that we just approved. So, do we have a motion to approve the warrant articles?
So moved.
Have a second? Second from from Lisa. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. And there, I will send these around, that we each need to sign this.
And for those people that are not here, we don't have to have the full board, as long as we have, you know, people that. Yes.
No, go ahead.
What's that?
I was going to actually ask. The district
Tom
budget
is,
meeting?
we just have to have
the 23rd.
somebody to deliver
Is that
them,
at
and
6?
Tom is the person that always does it for us.
Tom's the man.
Yeah, it could be anybody that's a resident.
Okay, and the next one, it says, this is the note on it, it says, these need to be signed early, so we can get them to each town office, so the selectmen will have time when they hold their meetings. So, is that what these ones are?
Yes.
One for each town.
Front
One
page
for
is
each
the
town.
board, the second page is the selectmen of each town to sign, so that they can post it.
So do we need to vote on that also, or just sign? This is based on what we just voted on, right?
So you and I have to sign.
Yeah, I would mention it.
Yeah.
Just so they know. So Mary?
Just so you know, the last papers that went around, my name was not on but either of them.
Did you write it on
procedures.
there?
I did not.
Okay, so we.
It's okay.
The policy.
Yeah, we don't have to have everybody on
Okay.
there, so, but if you'd like it on there, you can just write it.
No, it's okay if you're okay.
We'll get Lauren,
I'm okay.
Lauren to make sure you're on the list.
Okay.
I didn't agree the last time, but
Okay, so we're gonna move on to approve the school board stipend distribution, which we talked about at each of the subcommittee meetings, and is included in the packet. And what we talked about in the subcommittee meetings was that stipend amounts be determined by attendance, and any leftover funds be distributed equally between the members of the negotiations committee, the budget committee, the superintendent evaluation committee, and the middle school addition committee. Board members who attend the regularly scheduled meetings, which are the monthly meeting and the committee meetings, would receive a stipend amount that's determined by dividing $1,400 by the number of regularly scheduled meetings that are held between December and May, and then June and November.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, do we have a second? Second from Lisa.
Now I have a question.
Okay.
When do the people who does all the sports activities receive their stipends?
December and June.
Same time, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they're only in one season, like say they do baseball season only, they wouldn't get a December because they haven't had their event yet. But if they're in any year-long school, like if they are on the certification committee or if they're on any of those other year-long paid committees, they're all December and June.
They're split up the same way it always
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, December and June.
So if a guy does, I don't know what it'd be, maybe basketball?
No, I think if they're in a single season, they get it at the end of the season. Is that correct, where's Stacy? Yes. If they're in a single season and it's only like a 3-month season, they get it at the end of that
At the end,
season.
okay, thank you.
Any year-long events, it's December and June.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. And we've already done the policy ones. Looking at the 18 reports that were included. Well, I went for Rick. Rick? I just wanted to ask you, you said in here that you had plans for another community give back day. Do you have any plans that you can share with us?
Yeah, well, staff is continuing to finalize some details, but all of all of the students at PCS will be going out into the community to do some sort of community service project. We're scheduled for May 25th. And it varies depending on the groups. We're working on some of the trails with Scott Siegel in the rec department. Our kindergartners last year was a big hit to go wash fire trucks. So how much of a community service I'm not really sure, but they loved it. So they're working at the town office, working on flowers. They're cleaning up down at the cemetery, the ball field. So we have kids going all over that day.
Thank you, and thank your staff. I think that's an important project.
Yeah. The May 25th.
Is this just PCS or is this RSU1?
This is just PCS.
And you did it last year also?
Yes, we did it last year as well.
Thank you. Also wanted to say thank you to our elementary social work and guidance staff for presenting professional development on student behavior. And also, they have a plan that says for a second series of workshops next year. That's great. And I also wanted to call attention that Sean had in there that June 21st was Bruce M. Whittier's 8th grade celebration. And Jenny gave us invitations tonight to the adult ed graduation on June 2nd at 6:30 at Elm Street School. Anybody else have anything to add for administrative reports? Okay. Our student representatives are absent. I did want to say they are continuing to work with Amy on a bulletin board that is featuring us as a school board, and Jack and I have done it, and Melanie and Jen are up there now, so we will ask you.
You can get one today. She doesn't have her picture.
Oh, you gotta have a picture. So each of you will have an opportunity to share that so that the students can get a sense of who we are. Subcommittee reports, operations, Aaron?
Sure. Inside your packet, you've got basically all of our minutes, but we revisited and just talked about the shared entrance at the middle school project again. We had discussed a few times over about having the building project consist of only the middle school, but also attacking the security needs of both of the high school and the middle school because it's one actual facility. I asked the committee to re-look at that because the hindsight when the buildings were originally built, today's problems in today's society were not what we faced 20 years ago. And I think the way everything's changing, I think it would be a disservice to our kids, our teachers, our facility if we didn't at least look at it from a perspective of what we're doing to keep our kids safe. And right now, as it stands, inside the middle school, it's not generally a problem, but in the high school, it can be. So this project would allow us to wrap everything into one, build one time, handle all the construction, renovations, anything that we need to. And we discussed a couple opportunities of how to get that addressed, but we still prioritize three basic things of all the classrooms being in the single building. That was number one priority for us for the middle school. Offer the best security that we can for the price that we can afford to bring to the towns and get support of. And then third, make sure that we have enough space to meet the educational needs of the students, whether growth or whether they're just not getting the facility they have right now. So John is got some follow-up work to do with that committee just to make sure that they hear our voice and they also know what future goals we should address at the same time. John talked about the food service collections and the fact that things are going well, but we've had to make small tweaks to the communication, to the way we're doing the food collections from the debt collectors, and also the fact that it's getting people's attention and the fact that they owe money, and we're now starting to get an influx of money that we didn't have before. We are getting, I think, 75 cents on the dollar back on that, which is a small loss to us, but we have a really big loss of 0 cents doing it the way we're doing, plus the loss of time in our staff of chasing these. So this is a win-win for everybody right now. And as Stacy said, we finally have a positive number versus a negative number in that category. So I think we're doing a good job there. Traffic egress. We discussed about how difficult it is to get in and out of our facilities during certain peak times, whether it be Route 26 related or whether it just be all the buses in here and all the parents picking up or dropping off at one time. So we discussed a couple of options for the administrators to talk between themselves and with the transportation directors about drop-off times, pickup times. I know it was communicated out to the sheriff's office as well as Poland and I think Mechanic Falls or vice versa about having officers patrol that area, and there's some hesitance there just on staffing on their end. We do have a new traffic pattern coming up at 5 corners, or now 4 corners. So once the construction's done, that light's going to go active, so we're not exactly sure, but we think that it'll actually benefit the school because the few seconds that the light will hold traffic back will allow our buses to get safely onto 26, get cars in and out. We talked about whether to drop kids off, like I said a little earlier, and space it out so the buses wouldn't be in the way of the cars and the cars wouldn't be in the way of them. So we're still working on some of those informational points right now. So that's all I've got.
Okay, thanks.
Can I just ask a question? So with the building project, ideally, I know it's looking at the construction as well as security, but are you thinking that there will be some breakout of the security if the whole package doesn't
So
sort
right
of
now, I
pass?
think the plans the architects are bringing forth are going to be, they're reworking everything right now, but the major plan is just to worry about having the building project itself. My request was, let's make it one central. If we're going to spend the money, let's do it the right way. Because a lot of the reason why we have to build is they didn't have the hindsight to see it 20 years ago, and I don't want to be in that spot 20 years and hand somebody else another bill. And who knows what those costs are going to be like and things like that.
So I was just thinking down
We
the
do
road,
have some
if it,
plans for
is
the
it
high
all or
school.
nothing kind of
We
thing.
do have some
That's all.
plans, if it doesn't get approved and it doesn't go, of how to change the high school entrance around to make it more secure.
Right.
To put the secretaries where the doors are and to move some of those office structures around, cutting some holes out in the walls, just so people can always have eyes on who's walking into the building and where they're going. Because right now, there's no way to prevent somebody from going into the building versus going and checking in and then going in.
I guess I'm lost.
Yeah.
I thought we've gone to Plan B already.
I was asking the committee to relook at it and that really put some time and energy into it. I didn't want to put something forth to the committee that was half a plan or a button fix on it.
Maybe I'm wrong. I thought we had the consensus we're going to just look into remodeling when we come in through.
And the architects are working on
Not all
that.
one big massive entrance. So-
They're working on that. That's
Yeah.
the plan that they're taking right
Okay,
now.
that's Plan B.
I asked the committee I asked the committee to relook at it and consider not putting that option up there and only putting a shared entrance up there for the town and letting the town decide what they wanted to.
You did that.
I did. You were there that day.
Is that how you understood it, Norm?
Well,
I didn't come away with that opinion.
At the last building committee meeting, which was the day after the meeting you're talking about, the architect came back with one entrance. We had asked him to come back with, what is the cost?
Yes.
What additional cost is that going to be? Because it's going to be quite high. What's the additional cost to go to one entrance and do the remodeling we have to do versus two entrances? And they're not back to us yet.
Right, we're meeting at the end of this month.
So before we figured it was $1 million to do that one part of it.
Well, right now, we don't know what it is, and so we have asked them to
Okay,
go back.
I just
and-
come along, I come along with the wrong thing in my brain, I guess.
But it could be costly, but we don't know how much right now. So that's what we're waiting for.
So that's not in the final plan then?
We don't have a final plan.
I'm not on the building committee whatsoever.
No, I'm just
It was the
asking
operations
Eric.
aspect of it.
We don't have a final plan yet, and we've asked our architect to go back and to take a look at it based on some feedback.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing too, when the school was built, there was a real reason for 2 entrances. Now, security has become a whole different thing.
Exactly.
But when it was built, all we kept hearing over and over and over and over is, we want the middle school to have its own
Separate.
identity, we want it to be by itself. Even to the point where we had one principal for the whole 9 yards, and then we added a middle school principal, and then we added a dean and stuff, because it wanted its own identity. And over time, things have changed, but it wasn't an oversight, it was the way.
No, and I correct myself for saying it was an oversight. I just know things are changing, and security wasn't an issue 20 years ago like it is today. It was still an issue, but it wasn't a major concern in
At that
today.
point, we probably would have done something with this entrance a little different for better security.
And I just don't want to go 20 years and say, why didn't we at least think about it or look at it?
Oh,
and
no,
see
I mean,
what it
at
is.
least we can look at it, but it's not casting concrete or anything yet.
Okay, moving
So
right
our
along.
next committee report is Personnel and Finance, and Leonard wasn't there. So when I look down through that, we have talked about everything on that page except the principal search process, and Tina's going to talk about that in a while. And then we talked some about voting, election costs, but I think you can read that. The next one, educational policy, and Jack wasn't there, but I can go over that quickly. Carrie came and she talked a little bit about senior English, and they have a proposal that they feel will improve senior English next year. It's not a change in graduation requirements, but it breaks that senior English down into 2 semester-long courses. And Carrie also came with the student survey, which, has that gone out yet, Carrie?
Yeah, we have like 330 responses, so it's.
Yeah, it was a good survey. They took the ideas that we had given Carrie, they added some to it, and included also the questions that our student representatives had helped us form. So I think it's going to be good information, good data for us, but also for the high school to have a baseline data. So.
When's the end date for that?
When is the end date?
We actually, today would have been the last day, so when I checked after school, we had 330 responses, which is, we were hoping to get over 300. There's, 460 kids in the building, but seniors are less than invested. But we have a good chunk at each grade level, so it's pretty evenly distributed. So I think by the time the June meeting is when I talked with these guys about sharing it, so.
Oh, that'd be great.
Good. Thank you. Thanks, Carrie, for your help with that.
Yeah.
We
Sorry it took
talked
so long.
some about distribution of flyers, which are the papers that would go home with their kids in their weekly folders, their backpacks, and came up with some guidelines around that, and talked about allowing flyers to be sent home from local nonprofit groups who primarily service our students at their own school 3 to 4 times a year, which would allow the kind of distribution that rec would need in order to get out their notices. We ask that whenever possible, organizations send a blurb to the principal about events for inclusion in the principal's newsletter. And we agree that we don't send home information from private, nonprofit, religious, or political organizations.
Has that information been shared with key people?
No, it hasn't. We're working on it.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But,
I mean,
I think we agreed that
Yes.
it was a compromise that we thought would meet the needs of those programs that need to get out information to
Well, I was
kids,
thinking of-
particularly our rec programs.
Correct, the rec programs, that's.
They've heard, or at least some of them have heard word of mouth, but I want to give them the formal guidelines in writing.
Oh, that'd be great, thank you.
So everything else at the Educational Policy Committee we have either talked about tonight, and the Middle School Building Committee, is, John, anything you want to add to that? To these notes? These notes are comprehensive.
He's done a good job
So
representing the meeting.
unless someone has questions for John, he's given us some very comprehensive notes. Okay. So the report of the school board chair. Our community survey, we need to think about getting our staff and community survey out again. So we're going to be working on that, thinking probably using the same one we used last year. So that will go out right off. Superintendent evaluation, you should be, Tina, is it ready to go out, the
Yes.
survey?
I've done my part of the evaluation, and now it just has to be mailed to you. And what I will be doing is mailing. It worked really well on my end, so hopefully it works well as you get it. You should be able to see my evaluation, how I self-evaluate it, and also my comments. You should be able to click for your what you rate me at and put your feedback in. That will all go to Mary, and Mary will be able to kind of bring it all together. And
Karen did, our data person did a really nice job. She worked really hard on it and then discovered that it had to be done on a PC, not a Mac. So if you don't have access to a PC, what you need to do is send it to Jack and he will enter it for you. So that was the only kind of glitch that we had. And if you need it, there is one in the packet from last month. It was in that packet, but hopefully everybody can do it that way. And this year we're just kind of feeling it out, so it's getting it out about a week later than we had hoped to. But Tina's got hers all done, so.
And it didn't, typically, we've shared this, it was about 10 hours that I would put into my evaluation with the old, 37-page rubric. And it probably took me 2 hours total to do the full process and to, make sure I had comments in there that you could see if there were some areas that some were, self-explanatory. I didn't put any details. I thought you would know enough, and others I put some information. The challenge we're going to have is with the administrative team, because they all have Apples. And so whether they'll be able to find a PC in the building to enter it in, I'm not sure. But because Karen had put so much time into it, we figured at least we'd test run it. And if there's a problem, we can always print them out and do the hard copies. But we'd rather not. We'd rather take advantage of all the electronic process and see if it works the way we think it's supposed to.
So it comes to us via first pass, but the link is somewhere else?
No, this link will be in first class. Okay. I will send it to you.
I don't have first class. For the PC, I can't get it on my PC.
So send me, we'll talk, give me a call or something, and I'll work it out with you where to send it. Because I'm going to send it to everybody.
I don't know if it'll work on this, but I get emails from John all the time, and he's kind enough to send them Office PC, but I always use my iPad and I can't open his emails. However, in the first class, but if I go in there and resend it to myself to my AOL email, then I can open it up and use it.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. You should be able to open it up anywhere, but.
So maybe if somebody does have like, Apple just resend it to another email address and open it.
Okay, Tina, give
2 questions. So our timeline, like a week?
Well, we had hoped to have it done by the end of this week, but I would say the beginning of next week sometime, so if you need the weekend to do it.
Right, so like give it a week, okay.
And it shouldn't take as long. I mean, we have tried to come up with a rubric that is easier, less reading, and, we encourage you to make comments.
Yeah, I think for you guys, a half an hour and it'll be done. Which, when I look at, like for me, I was taking a little more time. It was the first time I had to use John's computer. He kicked me out once, in and out, but just that process. But I think it's so much better. It really seemed easy. And the only challenge I had, I was telling Mary, is my goals were set up to the other plan, so they didn't perfectly align. So some places where it says, did you have a goal in this domain, it was questionable about which one it fell in. But I did put the basics in there. And there'll be instructions. There's an instruction sheet of how to do this. So once I get ready, I'll review that again, make sure it's okay. So you'll have an instruction sheet and my evaluation. So you can see what I did as well as while you're doing yours.
Okay. And then who fills it out? It'll be us, and then the administrators.
And then central
Including you,
office
and
does-
central office,
No,
like-
the administrators in central office will, and then the support staff in central office do the 360 survey.
Okay.
And Julie's has sent that out to them.
Anyone that we thought knew enough about the work that I do is getting the administrator one.
Mhm.
So, because John works with me on the operation stuff and things like that, he's doing an administrative one, where Stacy is mostly the finance, she's getting the other one.
Okay.
And Tom would be getting the other one.
Tom is getting the other one, because he doesn't see the educational work that I do.
Okay, let's see. Oh, I did want to let people know that Catherine has resigned as a Poland rep because of some work commitments. She said she just felt that she could not give the time that it needed. And during the election, Ed was reelected and Joe Parent was elected. So it's what we are hoping is that Melanie will be the person that's appointed to take Catherine's place. So we hope that that's something that the Poland Selectmen will do. So
Would that'd be
Melanie
for a
would
year?
like to stay with us, and we would very
Yeah,
much
that'd be
like her to stay with us. So
that'd be great.
So that's our hope.
You didn't run?
I did.
Yes. It seems like your mind, because they wanted to be appointed you.
So, at our next meeting, before that meeting starts, if we have people that are retiring, and I believe we're going to have one, we'll have a retiree reception for that person before our next meeting. So if you can just think that our next one starts at 6 rather than 6:30. And let's see, our attendance is in there, and if you look at the board governance newsletter that was in there, sort of our newsletter, I thought it was talking to us.
Yeah.
Because I had talked about us managing ourselves and talks about written norms and protocols, which we have, and we need to remember those norms are right on our name tags. And definitely we have addressed governance through our strategic plan. We have a whole goal area. We have set goals. We're doing our yearly board survey. So I think many of the suggestions here, we've already done them. I think we see it as we need to keep working on those, but we're definitely headed in the right direction.
Are we keeping master copies of these?
I have them, yes.
That would be, because the whole like orientation thing,
Yes.
if we get to that point, these would be great. to
Yeah,
include.
and that's what I was, when I was reading down, I was like, we do these things, all of them.
And then it did talk about advocacy and advocating for, particularly this time of year, our budget and reaching out to elected officials. So I would just encourage people, if they have time, to do that. And then it talked about new member orientation, which is something that we have done yearly and something we've taken care of during the summer, and we will do that again, Lisa, okay? And our attendance is in there. So we're ready to move on to report of the superintendent.
Yeah, I thought I'd just give many of you were there, but not everybody, with a public forum for the budget. And there were probably between 25, 28 of us at the meeting. There were 17 non-board member, non-administrator, so community members there, which is probably about average from what we typically get. Not a great turnout, but 17 came, and 17. And we reviewed, as Mary said, the budget with them and got a little bit of feedback. She's already shared that feedback, so I won't spend too much more time on that. Superintendent's evaluation, we just talked about. We're in the process of doing that. I will hopefully get that sent out to you tomorrow, and we'll give a one-week date for you to have it all back in to Mary and Jack, so we can move forward on that. Friends of RSU 16 had another meeting. We've been meeting monthly with that group, and one of the things that we did this time with them is talk about advocacy for this district. So we talked about what are some highlights about the district if somebody asked you what's going on in RSU 16. So we gave them a sheet of just 4 or 5 bullets of highlights that they could share. We said, what about the budget? If someone said, wow, the budget's 6%, how do you talk about what's in the budget? What do we get for our 6% increase, or our 1.84% increase is the real increase, but certainly has a different tax impact. So that 1.84, how do they explain that or talk about what's in the budget with the community? And then we had a third one, budget. Oh, the building project. What are there 3 or 4 highlights that if somebody asks you what's going on with the building project, that our friends of RSU 16 have some highlights to share. So John came and spoke with them on that. And Mary thought about inviting Nolan, our Optimist oratorical contest winner, to share his speech with the group, and that was a big hit. So that they really appreciated that. And he was great.
And I think one of the points that was made was from somebody that's not in the schools all the time, and he said, just listening to Nolan and his speech when he walked away, he said he just had a really good feeling about what's happening in our schools, and I think it's another message about we need to get people in our schools and see the good things that are happening, and the kids that are doing extraordinary things. And it was a good reminder to us that anytime we can pull somebody in and show them, whether that's grading our history day or our concerts, all of those things that just show what great things we're doing.
And one of the things that they were talking about is how do we spread this information that we have about the school and the good things that are happening there. So one of them was, again, these key points or these highlights they could share. But what they were saying is, if everyone on the Friends of RSU 16 group just called 5 people and asked them to come to the budget meeting, the vote on the 23rd, there were 10 there, I think, on...
It's usually between 10 and 15.
10 and 15, but they said, we just each call 5 people, make a phone call, a personal contact with 5 people and say, please come to the vote. Can I get you to commit to come to the vote? And they said the same thing about the school board. Ask the school board, you got 15 members of the school on the school board. If they just can get 5 people to commit to vote, then we've got more people than we usually have at our budget vote. And how easy would that be for each of us? And they said, so we said the same thing, administrative team. There are 12 administrators in the district, if you consider, the food service, operations, business office. If the 12 of us could call 5 families, and then we also talked about our 18-year-old students, getting our teachers of senior roundtable to talk to the students about making sure they're 18 now, they've registered to vote. What is that process like, and making sure they're ready and we get them to commit to come and vote. So I thought that really does make sense, because if somebody calls you, you are more apt to commit and to show up. So I'll challenge you to all do that, see if you can think of 5 people who typically don't show up, and see if you can get those people in your neighborhood or your circle of friends to actually do that. And then the last thing I had was the principal search. So we're hopefully tomorrow, Mary and I are working on the final steps of the principal search process. So our goal is to send out an email to the committee tomorrow. We've got a parent, we've got 2 board members, we've got 3 staff members, and 3 administrators, 2 central office and 1 building level administrator. So all of those...
Lisa's going to represent the board, and I'll represent the board.
So we're going to get those notices out to everybody. We will, encourage people to come and look at the applicants' resumes before we actually do the interviews. And our dream timeline is that we would be interviewing next Tuesday and Thursday, which is the 16th and 18th. So we have to get all these pieces together tomorrow to really pull that off, because people need, usually at least a week's notice.
Have you advertised, Nina?
Yes, yeah, we've advertised and we have packets in. We did a to be determined when, when an appropriate candidate is found kind of thing. So we feel like we're ready.
Probably advertised for about 3 3
3
weeks?
weeks.
4 weeks. 4 weeks. And Tina did send out a survey, too.
Who on the committee actually gets to vote who we hire?
So the superintendent's the only one that can nominate. So the committee is an advisory committee to the superintendent. We'll go through a process together. And then I have to make the final decision who is nominated.
Not like when we hired you.
Right. We won't have that happen. Yes. But we will, the committee process is really important because the committee brings various perspectives in and helps us as we're going through the interview process to ask questions that reveal, strengths and weaknesses of a character. And so the committee has great power in that process.
And Tina has sent out a parent and a staff survey. So that's part of what we're going to use to establish the criteria for, what is this person that we're looking for? What's the criteria? And then we'll use that information to come up with our interview process and our questions. So, the feedback that we get from others is really important within that process.
It will really help us give a big, the big picture of what the school needs and wants, and also what the community needs and wants in a candidate. So I'm really looking forward to the process, and I think we have a good process established. We're talking, we really want to do site visits with the finalists because we want to see what their current site has for a culture and feel when we go through the process. So we'll keep you informed, and like I said, we're hoping for getting all of the final details wrapped up tomorrow. And then the last thing I'd like to say is it's Teacher Appreciation Week this week, so we're always looking forward to that. We do some Facebook thank yous, but Amy and I are going to try to get out into all 5 schools this week and thank our teachers. I think Wednesday is National Nurse Appreciation Day, so we'll make sure we recognize them on Wednesday. And it's always an important week. The PTOs and the PTAs and the community clubs do special things for the teachers either last week or this week. So good time for our teachers, and important to make sure we recognize them.
Resignations.
Oh yeah, I always forget the ending, don't I? So we have resignations. Charles Yancey, a teacher at PRHS Science, has resigned. Rhonda Fitzmaurice, teacher at Elm Street School. Jordan Ramharder, Amanda Olmstead, Jessica Prue, Christina Feither, and Penny Burgoyne. All resignations, so we will be working to fill these positions in the coming month, and hopefully get a great number of candidates applying for these positions this year. We also have support staff. We have a new hire with a varsity soccer coach for the boys, I think, David Coyne, and then, of course, your handout that Mary talked about is in your packet.
We're still doing exit interviews.
Yes.
Are you seeing any trends, or is that anything you'll share with us?
Yeah, certainly. And I can do it at the end of each year if the board would like. That, because it makes sense, yeah. So for the most people, what I found last year is they're leaving to be closer to home and to make more money, or make more money. And typically it's both of those. They can get a job closer to home that's also paying more. So there's not just one thing. It's pretty consistently those two over and over and over again, and no major surprises for us. But still, we can share the data to show we have this many resignations. Here's how many said, these 3 things. So, and I always keep the raw data, so I have all of the forms if the board would like to see them.
All right, we have 2 executive sessions, and I would like a motion for I think we will do the second one that's listed here first. So we need a motion to enter into executive session with representatives of the RSU 16 Education Association pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056A to consider agreements. Do I have a motion? Do we have a second for that?
Second.
A second from Jack. We have a motion and a second? All those.
Sorry, let me, yeah,
all right,
just.
all
let me
those
catch
in
the
favor
motions first.
of the executive session, we'll do it in 5 minutes.
Thank you very much.